Do not listen to this story, and I think this is the scariest one I've gotten so far for Spooky Scary Storytime, and honestly I hate this story. When I read it, the hair on my arms was like standing on end, but I'm gonna share it anyway. Just watch it in the daytime, so save it for later if you need to, but literally don't watch it at night because I did and it freaked me out. The story was submitted by this guy named Tom, who told me he wanted to tell me about his experience moving with his girlfriend during 2020. Tom is obviously not his real name. He wanted to be anonymous, but he will be reading the comments. So Tom and this girl Michelle are dating for like 3 years. They're living in a big city. I don't know which one he didn't say. They live a really good, comfortable life. Tom works in IT, and his girlfriend Michelle is an instructor at a yoga studio, and they both do pretty well. They're both really healthy, really fit. They love being social, going out. No mental health issues at all, right? Tom also said that Michelle made a lot of money on social media. She was sort of an influencer, and she did a lot with different fitness brands, and she would film a lot in her studio. 2020 hits, and Michelle is immediately laid off because the yoga studio closed, but Tom was able to work remotely because he was doing that mostly anyway. Their apartment is really expensive, and their lease is coming up, and they basically decide that they want a quieter life because they don't know how long everything that was going on in 2020 was going to last. So they ended up signing a lease for a place that was about 50 minutes outside the city in more of like a rural area. He said it was still kind of suburban, like there were stores around and places for them to go and get groceries, like not super country, definitely not what they were used to in the city. And when they moved out there, they were really excited because it was a change of scenery for them, and they were saving money to buy a house. So rent was a lot cheaper, and they were both happy with the move. Everything's fine. Tom sets up his office. Michelle has the spare bedroom as her yoga studio where she's going to continue filming content, and things seemed perfect. A couple months after they move, Michelle decides that she wants to get into gardening. She was obviously already really into health and fitness and wellness, but she decided she wanted to be more into sustainability and was starting to like make more videos about sustainability. So she has Tom go in the backyard and basically dig a giant pit where they're going to start a compost pile. And Michelle's out in the yard and she's like planting some vegetables that she had gotten, and Tom calls her over because his shovel hits this like metal box. So she comes over to look, and they pull out this, he described it as maybe like a 12x6 just metal cash box. And it's all dirty and rusty, but they pull it up and Michelle opens it, and inside is a Ouija board. And Tom is immediately kind of like put off by this. Like he doesn't really believe in that stuff, but he also doesn't like it. And Michelle's like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like I'm going to make some videos on this. And she takes it out and walks back up onto their patio with it and starts like dusting it off on their patio table. They kind of leave it out there, forget about it. And later that night, Michelle's like, oh, do you want to go play with the Ouija board? And Tom's like, not really. Like, you know, he said that they were really into Tiger King at the time. He just wanted to like watch that and hang out. And she was like more into going outside and playing with the Ouija board. So she's like, well, I'm just going to go play with it if you don't want to. And he's like, okay, whatever. And he just stayed inside and watched TV. The next day they wake up, Tom logs into his computer to start work, and Michelle, he said, was kind of just groggy, which was pretty out of character for her because she's normally pretty bouncy. She was a morning person. She would always wake up at like 6 a.m. with him, but she's just like slinking around the kitchen. And he's like, are you okay? And she's like, I just don't feel well. She's like, I don't think I'm going to make any content today. I think I actually have been like having the urge to paint. I'm going to go to the store and get some painting supplies. And he's like, okay, cool. He's working. She comes home with like a bunch of canvases and some paint. And she basically converts like half of her yoga studio into this painting area. And she spends the rest of the day doing that. The next day, same thing. She just wants to paint. She's not really feeling well, doesn't feel like making content, doesn't feel like doing yoga. This goes on for like a week, and one night he wakes up and she's not in bed. So he gets up to go to the bathroom, and then he notices like she's not in the house. So he sees the patio light is on, and he walks to the back door and he looks out and he sees her sitting at the patio table playing with the Ouija board. And he opens the door and he's like, Michelle, come inside. Like, what are you doing? And she's just like, oh, like I just wanted to see if I would get anything. And he gets this unsettled, anxious feeling in the pit of his stomach because now he really does not like the Ouija board. The next day she's painting, and he walks in the room and he's like, hey, like, I think we should talk about the Ouija board. I don't think you should have it. Like, I think you should get rid of it. I don't really like the idea of it in our house. And she's like, you're being dramatic. You know, I'm going through something. Like, it's a fun activity for me. I don't have a lot of fun in my life. My job was shut down. And so he just drops it. And he's like, okay, you're right. Like, I'm overreacting. So later he feels kind of bad, and he goes back in her studio, and she's still sitting there in silence painting. And he said on the canvas, it was just like a bunch of triangles that were all overlapping all over. And he basically tells her that he feels like they haven't really had a good like date night, obviously, since 2020 started. He's like, why don't we have a fire in the backyard? We can just like grill some food. Like, it'll just be really fun. And she just tells him flat out no. Like, she just wants to paint. So he goes to bed, and she is still painting that day. So he wakes up in the middle of the night again. She is still not in bed, and he hears her talking. So he goes, okay, well, she's just making a video. So he peeks into her yoga studio, and she's not making a video. She is still painting, but now she is painted off the canvases onto the walls, and it's still the same overlapping triangles on every single surface around her. And he's like, Michelle, what are you doing? And she turns around and looks at him and says, I found the door. And at this point, he realizes like she is not right. Like she's having some kind of mental break. So the next day, they wake up, same thing, she wants to paint. And he calls her mom. And he basically tells her mom that Michelle is going through something and she needs to snap out of it. And he asks her mom if she'll come and stay with them. Her mom has like nothing going on, I guess, because the next day she comes and stays with them. And Michelle seems normal when her mom is there. Like, she basically pulls Tom aside and she's like, I don't know why you called me. Like, obviously I'm happy to spend time with you guys, but she seems normal to me. And Tom's like, she's not normal. Like, I'm telling you, she's not normal. That night, her mom comes and wakes Tom up because Michelle is back outside playing with the Ouija board again. And her mom is super religious, so she does not like the Ouija board idea at all. She's like, you guys need to get rid of it. Like, why did you get her this? And Tom's like, I didn't get her for it. We found it in the yard. The mom's like, oh my God, you found it in the yard? And she's like, we are getting rid of this right now. Like, we are going to burn it. And she makes Tom make her a fire where they burn the Ouija board. And Michelle just maintains, like, you guys are overreacting. Like, this is just like a fun activity. Like, it's not even serious. Doesn't have any strong reaction to them burning the Ouija board aside from just like being annoyed. So it's the next night. Her mom is going to leave the next day. And Tom wakes up in the middle of the night to her mom screaming. And he runs out in the hallway and he sees Michelle sitting in the dark, facing the wall, just at the end of the hallway, like facing away from them, sitting cross-legged, staring at the wall. And her mom is yelling, like, what are you doing? Like, get up. And Michelle does not react. Like, it's like she can't hear them. She's just repeating, they're going to come in, they're going to come in, they're going to come in. So Tom runs over, grabs her, picks her up, and like basically shakes her. She snaps out of it and she's like, what's going on? And they're like, you were literally just talking to the wall. So her mom has had enough. She decides that she's going to bring Michelle home with her. She's like, I need to take her to church. Like, I don't like this. And Tom can't really argue with her. He's sad to see Michelle go, but he thinks it's just temporary and he has to work. So he stays at the house when Michelle and her mom leave. I don't know where they lived, but he said it was like within a day's drive and he could go, and he visited her a few times and she seemed fine. Apparently at her parents' house, she kept doing weird stuff at night to the point where they had her committed. Everybody is attributing this to a psychological break from the stresses of COVID and her being laid off. Tom is beside himself, but is trying to be as supportive as he can. He's in constant contact with her mom. And about 2 weeks after she gets checked into this mental facility, Tom is cleared to visit her. So he packs up, drives out to the mental hospital. She's sitting in this cool toned room in a rocking chair when he gets there, and he walks up to her and he was like, hey, how are you doing? And she just looks at him and says, you brought them with you. Oh my God, that freaked me out so bad when I read that. Oh my God. Keep sending me these stories. Tom said Michelle still is in this facility. She has obviously gained a lot of weight. She does not do yoga anymore. She does not make content. He said she has completely lost her mind and barely recognizes him when he goes to see her. A really good one that someone sent me, and I will be adding it to this